Thanks for dropping by. I'm Butch.
I'm Katie.
We're soldiers, leaders, family members,
Nerds!
and we want to discuss with you applicable leadership tools you can take away in your house back.
This is Army Leaders Improving Through Collective Experiences, or
Alice.
Alice. Disclaimer: this video is not officially affiliated or endorsed by the U.S. Army.
Nope, it isn't.
This week's topic is Army myths. What are the things that we tell ourselves inside the organization? Maybe all military organizations. What do people say maybe outside, inside, and why are they very much not true?
Yeah, and so I coach a local baseball team, and I hear some of these a good bit from the kids I coach and the high school kids and the 13-year-olds I coach and their parents. And I think we just wanted to change it up a little bit and just instead of having a leadership topic per se, kind of change gears and talk about myths about the military and the Army in general. And we can just clarify some things since we have about close to 40 years of experience between us. And
Couple.
we can definitely explain these and clarify these for listeners, especially our civilian listeners that are not part of the organization. And then it should be pretty entertaining too for those that are in the military. And you can comment
Be
on
like,
this
yes,
as well.
yes, yes.
This is definitely a myth. It's not true. But yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today's Army myths.
But also, if we don't know our baseline, if we don't know about what's out there, what's being said, how can we combat those myths? Or how can we work within an environment as a leader and do good in an environment where maybe something is not quite true?
Yeah, and everyone's a recruiter too. And a lot of these I pulled off the Army's recruiting website and other articles for recruiting is everyone's a recruiter in the Army. And a lot of these myths can be quickly dispelled whenever you're trying to get a young person to join the military. So there's also value to that.
Anybody join the army. Myth number 1: military life is incompatible with having a family. I saw this on Reddit maybe once or twice. What do you think?
Well, both of us have families, so we can speak at
Oh,
length on
right.
that. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a misconception that you join the Army and your family, you just make all those. We do make sacrifices, but the Army, I would say, like most services, encourages families because they know you. The saying is what recruit the individual but retain the family. So the Army
Absolutely,
is
yes.
one of the numerous services that they encourage family member participation. We have family readiness groups, other resources available for families to support families, even though, like I said, all the sacrifices that service member has to go through. But the Army has a very strong community of support for family members and child care centers that I work with. I have a daughter, a very young daughter. She's 6 now. We used that whenever we were stationed at Fort Bliss, Texas. Had a great FRG when I was in company command. Had 300 members in my organization, and the families they all helped each other out. And military
Yes,
service, I'd
that.
say, makes it a stronger bond. And another common saying is it takes a village to raise a child, and I would say it's a stronger village being in the military with. And you can probably speak
Yeah.
on that as well. We had
Very much.
some other couples that were good friends with us in Fort Bliss, and they were able to watch our daughter and whenever we had field exercises and reach out and help us whenever we needed help, and vice versa. We'd help them whenever they needed help. But yeah, you could speak on that some more. If you
I
want.
would love to because I think it's a community that you kind of go into. So you retain a family, you retain actually a full community. And this is the same whether you're joining an organization or you're joining a religion particularly or any sort of community entity where you're ingesting into yourself or your family into that environment. I love the sort of family style hometown environment of facilities like base installation facilities where we have things like our grocery store is there and our shopping center is there and our school is there and we all live in the community together. I will tell you that my girls run amok on Fort Belvoir. They just ran the place like it was just small town USA,
Mm-hmm.
and that might not be the case everywhere you get to go. So having a family in the military is a very unique opportunity. Not only do you get that community and the friends, family support that you would hope that you can build. I think I might have said this before, but as we move and move and move, everyone understands that we're all moving, we're all doing those same things, and we have to instantly create bonds, bonds that are meaningful in a way that we can support each other and it can be sustained over time without a lot of maintenance. There's not a lot of expectation on one side, but there is a lot of support on the other side. So those are almost unequal, where I get a lot of support, but I don't necessarily have to put a lot of effort in to make that happen, which I don't know, maybe that's too much of an easy button that
Yeah.
I've been expecting in my
Yeah.
life, but it's been working for us and our family. I believe, while with the hardships, have had many, many wonderful things result from our military service.
And something that stood out to me in the article where I pulled most of these myths from. I think it's on the FAQ page on U.S. Army Recruiting Command's website, and there's an article that they cited. So the numbers: 52% of enlisted personnel are married, and 70% of officers are married, which I thought was kind of interesting
Boom.
because
It's a lot.
the average of non-military employers, it's around 48%. So the Army, the numbers prove it, that the Army encourages families, and most of our populace
Can
are married.
sustain a
Yeah, can
family.
sustain a family. So most of them are married and have kids, and the Army, like we said, encourages it. But
And
I
think
think
about all the
it's an easily
benefits.
dispelled myth. Yeah.
The benefits, my little one has accident prone tendencies, broken arm, broken nose
Yeah.
before 6 years old. I may not have afforded that sort of medical crises if I didn't have the Army to support me in that.
Yeah, and we could transition off that comment based on the healthcare thing I think you talked about earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a myth out there that military healthcare, and we'll speak on the Army healthcare piece, is lacking or subpar, and that's, you hear some horror stories on social media. And for me personally, I'll speak on my personal health condition. I have an autoimmune disorder, and I worked with a lot of professionals at Walter Reed Medical Center there in the DC area, and just I think my lead internal medicine doctor graduated from Columbia Medical School or Yale. He was an
No
Ivy
big
League.
deal.
Yeah, no big deal. And they're just highly trained professionals. And even when I was at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, all the medical professionals there were extremely well trained, well respected, and treated me very well. So
I have a good anecdote for that. So I had a like recurring awful skin condition, and I was just like, it was getting worse and worse and worse. I couldn't even like put my arms down. I had like abscesses all over me, and I was like, what is happening? And all the medical centers, like the little clinics, they would just slice those open and stuff. It was awful. It was just pain, 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 pain. And eventually I got a real referral to a army dermatologist, and I'm talking to the doctor, and I was like, well, all I've been dealing with is all these army doctors. And he just, like, his face fell. I'm an army doctor. I was like, no, you're not.
yeah.
You're like taking me seriously. And he's like, no, I I'm an army doctor. And guess what? 2 treatments, I was cured.
Yeah.
I've never had the issue again. So I suffered for half a year just going to like that quick care clinical impact, but had I just done the things maybe correctly, navigated the system a little bit better, got my referral, as I probably should have had a lot earlier, but I did totally insult this poor young doctor right to his face, like, oh, no, you're not an army doctor. But he was.
Yeah.
And that's the point, right? He was an army doctor. He was really a doctor.
Really good.
He was very much
Quality
in the
care.
army,
Yeah.
and he gave me extraordinary care. He literally cured me of my issue.
Well, many that I've interacted with, they felt I would say extreme high level of commitment that I haven't seen. I talked to civilian professionals here in the Austin area, which they're great too, but it just seems like you're talking to another service member. They're in the service as well. They're
Yeah.
Army doctors.
Yeah.
And there's definitely some team aspect of it, and a little bit more, I would say, camaraderie and kind of buy-in into your care. They want to make sure you're ready to go whenever the Army does call upon you. So they want to get you quickly and back in the fight. Whereas I would say civilian doctors, you just don't experience that.
And maybe
as
they
much.
just
Yeah.
don't get it as much either, right? And so I think there is that sort of balance where, sure, an army doctor might be more dismissive, like, okay, rub dirt on it, drink water, kind of thing. But no one in the maybe civilian practices, they might say, oh, you'll be back to work in 2 weeks, but they don't understand what your work requires.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you'll be back to full physical capability in 2 weeks of whatever has
Yeah.
happened. Whereas maybe an army doctor can actually conceptualize what that might look like for you on the field, on the battlefield. What's it going to take to get you to truly to that readiness level? And I think that some grace either side and understanding that yes, there's good and bad doctors everywhere, that we can put that into a better perspective when we do engage with our military or civilian doctors, as that be.
Yeah, that's a good way to to sum it up. And we'll I think another I guess quality of life one is a common myth is everyone lives on base. Something my 13-year-olds or high schoolers have asked me whenever I moved here is, oh, do you live on base? Do you live on Camp Mabry? I was like, not a lot of people in the military live in a on base setting. You get housing allowance, you can live off post, especially officers and higher ranking enlisted members. And they always ask me that, and I think there's a conception out there um, and just the general public that okay, you're in the army, you live in a like a barracks
Yeah,
room with a
you
hundred
live
other
in a
people. I was like,
box.
no, I have my own apartment or house. I live by myself or with my family. It's like no, only you pretty much only live in those communal areas whenever you're deployed or basic training or AIT, and you could speak on that more. But even in officer training, certain levels of officer training, I did Bullock 2, which we did live in a barracks facility where there was 100, 200 other people in there with you. But that's a common myth is, oh, you're in the army, you must live in a barracks room, like a bunk bed, a guy sleeping above you like they see in the movies. And
I mean,
I hear it all the time.
sometimes.
But sometimes that's
Yeah.
the case. But most of the time,
And our
it
children.
is yeah, in our shoe. Yeah, so it's just amazing how Hollywood's had that impact. And there's several other myths
Right.
that we'll talk about where kids and other people they watch movies like okay that must be how
It's
the
like,
army works,
right.
but it isn't.
It is such a narrow representation of kind of what we would expect our lives to be each and every day, right? And I think that's I mean, how else would you get your information than from
Yeah,
media,
from
right?
media. Yeah.
So how would we know either way? But yes, we lived in shoes. Yes, we lived in barracks. Yes, we did those things. It wasn't that bad.
No.
No. I mean, hey, soldier, that's not the correct position of attention.
No, it isn't.
Myth number 3, you get yelled
3 or
at.
4, you get yelled at a lot. Yeah, kind of like that.
A little bit. A
A
little bit sometimes.
Way worse than that. Way worse than that. But I would say this is another thing that I've heard from the kids I coach and parents and other adults I've interacted with over the past 15, 16 years I've been in the army is, oh, I don't want to be in the army, or I don't want my child to be in the army. You get yelled at a lot. I was like, I think I've only been yelled at a few times or a little bit more than that over my entire 16-year career. Whenever you mess up, and of course emotions get high like any profession, but
Yeah.
I would say that the level of professionalism in the military and in the army specifically is extremely high, and usually people's emotions do not reach that level where you're getting just lambasted verbally for a minor infraction. Again, you were a drill sergeant. You can speak on that, but times have changed. What you see in the media is not real life. It's not facts. It's not factual. There are cases, and I'm sure you'll discuss it, where a soldier is making a mistake, and the only way to get their attention is that way, yelling. It's just like coaching. I coach baseball. There's certain ways you have to
And you know that.
you know that person well enough where that's how they respond. But
Right.
I think there's a myth that okay, everyone yells
they
all the time.
respond
It's
to
like,
that.
and they see all the movies about basic training that depict basic training. It's like, oh, you just get yelled at all day, every day. It's like, no, it is definitely
No.
not like that.
No,
Maybe,
no.
yeah, like I said, I've only been yelled at probably a handful of times my entire career. So
So definitely, it's a tool, right? And I even would lead my drill sergeants when I was an AIT first sergeant through an exercise where it's where is your line between you've lost control and where you're doing to make some sort of effect or impact. So I'm shouting, I'm doing this on purpose. I have control of my emotions, but the reason I'm shouting is to hammer in a point that is appropriate in almost a theatrical sort of way, right? And when you have large masses of soldiers, like everyone must see in movies, like we had 650 odd number in one company with just a handful of drill sergeants, how do I exercise control for the massives? Well, sometimes it's yelling, but it's not so much a yelling in a degrading fashion. It's a quick correction, get it right, and then move on from that moment. That's where you have that sort of agreement between soldier and soldier. I understand that war is very loud.
It is.
War is very loud. Sometimes I have to yell over things. So we might need to get something across maybe in a wide span or in a quick manner, but usually it's an urgent thing. The temperament that makes that okay is when you don't have to yell. You're always engaging with your soldiers. You're talking with them, you're explaining things, and then when it becomes urgency, they already trust you. You've already built the baseline. So, hey, we got to do this thing because of this thing. Hey, we got to do this thing because of this thing. True. I need you to call 911 now. There's no hesitation because you've already built the trust.
Yeah, it makes sense. And then we'll transition to, I guess, a little bit more of the recruiting side of things, what I've heard in these articles brought it to light. The military is full of uneducated people, and people join the military because that's a last resort, and this is on the Army's recruiting command as a frequently asked question. And military personnel actually have higher GPAs and a higher percentage of bachelor's and master's degrees than most civilian professions, and the math is on those websites, and we'll cite them on this episode. But both of us, we have master's degrees paid for. Mine was paid for by the Army.
Thanks, Army.
Yep, thanks, Army. Free master's degree, and they paid for my bachelor's degree through ROTC. And on the enlisted side, there's a lot of, if you join up as a junior serviceman or enlisted professional, there's plenty of opportunities to advance your education, get that bachelor's degree online, and the Army pays for it. And,
I got my master's.
Yep, and that's how I got my master's. And also your children. So my daughter, I gave her my GI Bill. Yep, and both of yours have GI Bills, so they can go to college free of cost. So it's amazing education opportunities. And just anecdotally, when I was a company commander and platoon leader, I had several soldiers who were 22, 23 years old, had master's degrees. One of them actually had a PhD in philosophy, and he was a 30-year-old specialist. So there's a myth out there that the Army and other services are full of uneducated people, and I can just tell you that's simply not true. And that's a rather easy myth to dispel quickly. Is again, the math is there, the sources are there, that we are a very educated force and very professional force. And we're full of awesome people.
People is our asymmetric advantage, right? We're not isolating people into pockets of disinformation or no information. We are letting everyone from top to bottom know all of the things that are necessary because we can handle it intellectually, we can understand, we can conceptualize the battlefield, and we can action whatever it is that we do know. We wouldn't be able to do that if we were a bunch of uneducated buffoons. I don't know, like, what do you ruffians? I don't, whatever you want to, like,
rednecks.
I mean, I'm a redneck. I'm from the cornfields of Illinois. So Illinois. So just that being said, those sort of stereotypical, honestly, some of the smartest people I ever met were the infantry. So
I mean, modern warfare is very complex. You have to manage a lot of systems at the same time, and I was a fire support officer in Afghanistan. It's very difficult, and even someone who's extremely educated and extremely level-headed, it's very difficult. So the Army understands the value of having educated professionals in its force, and it encourages it through those programs. And also they understand the benefit of having a GI Bill, even for dependents. So your spouse can go to college, or your children can go to college for free, and that just continues the cycle. And they know there's lots of benefits, not only for the Army but also for, I would say, the American public in general. It's another person with a high-level degree that can contribute to society. You can't
just run good.
Yep. It's not easily dispelled, but I hear that pretty frequently, is the military is full of uneducated people, and sometimes when I talk to people, they're surprised, like, oh, okay, oh, you have a master's degree, oh, okay, yeah, oh, you're somewhat intelligent, yeah, it's like, okay, well, there's actually a lot of smart people in the military, and I'll just transition over to the comment, the myth that the military is for people without any other employment options. I've heard that from several parents whenever I try to get their children to join up. It's like, no, that's not, that's not for my kid. That's like a last ditch resort is military service, and that's unfortunate. But a lot of the applicants right now don't even meet the Army's enlistment requirements. It's very selective. It should not be a last resort.
It's
Only,
almost difficult.
I think it's 23% of America's youth are actually qualified to do it. So it's not okay, I can't do anything else. The Army will take me. No, you have to meet these high standards because the Army is very, very selective, and it shouldn't be that last resort. So that's another thing that's pretty easily dispelled is a myth that the Army or the military in general is for people that have nothing else to do with their lives. They just, Uncle Sam will take me. I was like, it's definitely not like that.
I mean, we will. We love you.
If you meet the standards.
Come on.
Yeah,
we'll train you up.
Yeah.
We'll get you there. But, your heart has to be in it, too. So there's a little bit of a moral standard. If your values attune with ours, we'll get you to run good. We'll get you to do
really
lots of push-ups. We'll get you tactically trained. Like, we do all those parts to get you to the caliber that we expect you to, but there does have to be some sort of desire to be part of something larger than yourself.
I think that how arduous the training is for people who just join up, it's hard. It's going to weed out those people that consider the military as like, I'm just here because I couldn't do anything else.
I think
it'll be weeded out with that. Yeah.
Sorry,
Definitely.
I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Let me mush like the everybody yells at everybody. It's just a bunch of dummies. It's so hard. Let me mush all of that together. So when you're in training, you kind of play the soldier game, right? You just shut your mouth. Just kind of giggle internally like, okay, everyone's mad at me. I'll do push-ups. But really all that is training. It's to get you stronger. So knowing that intelligently, emotional intelligence as well as intellectual intelligence, it's easy to navigate training environments versus when you actually have to do executable environments in your operational units. When I'm doing the real army, real lives can be at stake. That's why it's so hard. That's why they're so brutal or mean or intense in those training environments. So when it does come to it, it's not the first time you ever experience that moment in your life. Because if it's the first time, you're gonna muck that up.
I'm not gonna do well.
I need you to practice it. This is just like we practice interventions on suicide or crises situation. It's just like you practice dialing 911, whatever it is, that reaction to contact. I can't have the first time you react in a real life situation. So training has to be intense, and that's okay because there's maybe almost like a no fail. There's a safety net, right?
Yeah.
So you can kind of play the game, play with it. Like, okay, they're going to yell at me, but it's fine. It's fine, right? It's going to be okay because in the end, while we do need to take it seriously because we might have live ammunition or we might have some serious after effects of that training, I understand that I never shut down in a real life situation. What do you think of that?
Yeah, and then I think the basic level benefit of all that training is discipline. Discipline's the foundation, and
There you go.
even with the yelling and the other stuff that
It's to
you
react.
experience, it's to react. It's to train that high level of discipline you need to excel in the military. And there's reasons why we get a lot. But I think the common saying is we do more than most people before 9 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yes.
You're an NCO, you can correct
We do
before
more,
people wake up, we do more.
Do
and
more before.
there's reasons why we wake up at 6 in the morning and go run 5 miles together with our other soldiers to build that camaraderie and toughness and discipline and whatnot. It's the foundation. Is we have all these habits that form, and they're productive habits. So whenever, like you said, that it's on the line, the mission's on the line, and we're asked to do something,
Right.
we do it, and we do it well because we've trained hard. So one of the things I tell the kids that I coach, both high school and young teenagers, is practice has to be hard. So whenever it's game time, you don't have all that anxiety. You can perform. Like, I've done this
It's
100
the same.
times. I've
It's
hit
just
this. I've hit
exposure.
this high level of pitching 100 times off Coach Besaidis, or I fielded this ground ball because I always hit it really hard to him. So practice is hard, so the games can be easy. Same thing with the military is our training is extremely hard. So whenever it's game time, whenever it's combat,
Yeah.
it's easy and we win. I mean, it's
And
kind
we
of
do.
the root, the root
do
point
win.
of it. Yeah, we do win.
What is
all
it?
the time.
We do more before 10, before
It's something like
those.
that. I can't remember the exact time. It's like
Do
9 or
before
10 in the
noon.
morning before.
We
Most
do
people do
we
it.
do
but
more
yeah.
before 9, before those do before noon.
Yeah,
One of them.
something like that.
I love it. Maybe the Army, this is not a myth, maybe this is a fact. The Army is just a bunch of morning people.
Probably. I had to get used to that. I'm kind of an
Oh,
afternoon,
yeah.
evening,
My
night hawk.
husband is like, I'm done. I'm not a morning person.
But again, that's a discipline, right? You have
Or
to follow
just
those
even
habits.
like you just adjust your life, just
adjust.
adjust to
You
it.
adjust.
Love it. Can I do my favorite myth as our final
Yeah.
closeout? My favorite Army myth is don't volunteer.
Yeah, you did mention that earlier.
So
Don't
everyone's
volunteer.
like, don't volunteer. Don't
You mean for a
volunteer.
task, or you mean for?
Legitimately anything.
For anything.
If the Army tells you, okay, hey, we just need some volunteers for this thing. You want to succeed? You want to put yourself above your peers? Say yes.
Yeah.
And I don't, maybe this is just biased from my anecdotal experience. Every time I said yes to do a thing has been one of the most amazing things that I've done in my career. Starting in basic training. Hey, we need some volunteers to like paint the other building. I was like, well, I'll do that. Screw it. They bought us pizza for 3 nights. You know how many other basic trainees got pizza? None. Oh, okay, well, this is clearly a thing that I need to do. Then it was more not like maybe external reinforcement, but internal reinforcement where I was now getting fulfillment, personal fulfillment from the things that I volunteered for. The applied suicide intervention skills training program, the things that I did for that program, the impact that I made on other people's lives to help them be more ready, more capable to be a caregiver. I did that internationally. I just got the opportunity to do that for like other NATO nations and teach other nations how to do that for their soldiers or service members and whatnot. Those are just very limited examples of how volunteering and just saying, yeah, sure, you know what, we'll be the ones to put in just a bit of extra effort has produced dividends for my career. And that's, again, like anecdotally, I think that it's a lie. It's a myth. You should definitely say yes when they say we want volunteers.
We already volunteered for the Army, so
Oh,
volunteer every day.
I didn't. I
The
said,
practice skill is already there. But for me, it's similar. Everything I've volunteered for has been very beneficial, and something I was taught by my cadre at Furman University, RTC, was it just have that courage to just throw yourself out there and
maybe that's it.
enjoy the experience. The Army is full of awesome experiences, and you'll never know if you don't try. So if someone asks for a volunteer to help out someone else, usually just raise your hand. You'll help someone else. You'll probably learn from it. It's definitely a worthy experience, and that comment makes me think of a meme. Maybe we can
What?
put it
We
on
have
our
it?
put it on
Do we
our
have it?
our episode here. It's whenever
Oh,
a
you don't
first
have
sergeant
it?
says no. First sergeant goes, "I need 3 volunteers,"
Okay.
and a soldier goes, "What do you need, first sergeant?" He goes, "I need 2 volunteers." Like, what? Clarify the task before I volunteer. And there's another. There's like
I
a.
just
Have
said
you seen
I
the
need
Kevin
those.
Hart? Have you seen the Rock and Kevin Hart? He's like, "I can't tell you what this thing is, but you're going."
No.
He's like, "Are you in or are you out?" And it had someone.
I'm in.
Someone put first sergeant and a specialist PFC. It's like, well, what are we doing? I can't tell you, but I need to know if you're in or you're out. That it just
Guess what?
added some humor to that volunteering all the time. Like, please tell me
Say you're in.
before I say you're in. So it just made me laugh. That's just some humor for that. But I would like to talk about one more before we
Okay,
cut it
I
off.
love it. Do it.
I think it's important. The Army is mostly made up of infantry, and what's interesting to me, I'm a force management officer, and I understand a lot of managing the people of the Army and all the billets, the positions across the Army. Is the Army used to be a majority of infantry historically. I would say probably in World War One, World War Two, a lot of infantry, but we quickly learned that infantry alone does not win those battles and wars. It's logistics. So right now, what stood out to me is infantry is around 15% of the total force. And just for civilian listeners, I think there's a bad myth out there is, oh, if I join the Army, I'll be in the infantry and I'll be in combat and all those a little bit more negative experiences that most people think of like, oh, I don't want to be in the Army because I'll be infantry. The Army has over 150 other career fields other
Right.
than infantry, and the Army is mostly made up of non-infantry positions,
Support.
which is it's mostly support.
There are close combats,
Yeah.
lots of close combat maneuver forces, all of those things. I would even say, just recently I learned of like a 40 soldier deep division of deep sea divers,
Yeah.
Army deep sea divers. There's at least 40 of them out there in the Army.
And there's another
Which I never
there's
knew.
another interesting nugget on the recruiting website is the Army. I didn't know this. The Army is the largest employer of musicians in the entire country. Did you know
Yes. You know,
The Army
that's how my
bands.
mom
We have so
tried
many
to get
band-
me in
band
the Army,
professionals, yeah.
was through the
I didn't know
band.
that.
And I was like, you
I
know
didn't
what,
know
I'm
that.
not good enough to be in the band, but
I'm just thinking of like the New York Orchestra
Yeah.
and all that. The
Well,
Army
they all
employs
ha-
more musicians apparently. I
they have
didn't know that.
doctorates and master's degrees.
Interesting.
They are
Plenty of jobs in the Army.
consummate professionals. Like
Mm-hmm.
those piccolo players, they're legit.
I mean, it's a morale thing. Yeah. And there's plenty of bands overseas that I listened to in Afghanistan. They put on concerts. We have rock bands in the Army.
Yep.
I didn't know that before I went to Afghanistan.
Soldier shows.
Yeah,
all
summer
that good
shows, US
stuff.
shows, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's great. But yeah, there's plenty of jobs back to the root point was plenty of jobs other than infantry in the Army. The Army is not all infantry soldiers. That's
No.
only about 15% of us right now.
Takes
the
a
other
lot.
85% are logistics and the other MOSs that pretty much help out the infantry. But that's it. Yeah, that's the episode. Just wanted to talk about these Army myths and clear up some
Hey,
things for the
put
listeners.
these in your pack.
Put them in your
though.
Alice pack. Yeah, they're pretty interesting and they can help our
Yeah, think
recruiting
about
messages. Everyone's a recruiter, especially leaders in your formations. There's a lot of people that you interact with on a daily basis outside the military that firmly believe in these myths, and you can
I kind of
quickly
see
dispel
how
them.
that might impact you, your units, how those sort of weave into the fabric of your lives right now, and how does that, in a holistic sense, maybe carry on your leadership qualities, your philosophy. How are you going to make changes that dispel or maybe get more to volunteer, or in a public environment let people know what impact you really make, what do you really do each and every day, because it's meaningful to know.
what we're all about.
Yeah, what we're all
What
about.
are we all about in the Army, and just live those values every day, and then clear up these myths. I think we'll continue to improve as an Army. So thanks for listening in.
Thanks for watching. I want you to like, subscribe, comment. What are
Please
your
comment and
hilarious
share.
myths? We will share them, maybe readdress them at some time. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks for listening in.